Pow! Here it is. We're back, but I'm not alone anymore. I've got my favourite Duncan, apart from Good Hugh. I can't think of any Duncans. That was a very witty.
How many? This is what I was going to say. How many other Duncans do you know?
Oh, Duncan Rule, who's also one of my best friends.
Of course, yes.
Yeah. So, Good Hugh, Rule, then you, unless I could think of any others.
What did we have? We had Duncan Prime.
Duncan Prime, yes, because he's from the Mirror Universe or whatever. I can't remember. Right. Anyway, I did a solo review of Batman in which I said I did not like the Batman. I did not enjoy it. You've listened to what I've said. I've expressed that to you over WhatsApp, and I've talked to a few people in the comments about it. I very didn't enjoy it, but what you all want to hear is not just me, you want us both, of course. So here it is, Val Verde Broadcasting coming back with a new review of a new film. It's The Batman. You've heard what I have to think. I'm going to compare and contrast with Duncan the Casey. Duncan the Casey, what are your thoughts on The Batman?
Well, I'll give you a quick roundup of my thoughts on it, and then I guess we'll talk spoilers. But so just to set the scene a little bit, I had to go and see it at 8 o'clock last night. Which for anyone who's been to the cinema in the last 20 years, nothing starts at 8. It starts at 8:30 when those sodding adverts stop. Mm-hmm. So it didn't start till 8:30. I didn't get out of there till well gone 11. I don't know what bloody time it was. And I'd had a day of toddler wrangling, so I was not in the best of moods. Buoyed by your articulate review of The Batman D. I was thinking, well, this is probably not going to be great, but I went in with an open mind, an open heart, and an open parody, and it was. It was. Do you know what?
Okay.
I when I came away from it thinking it was like if. Here's how I could summarize it. It's like if someone was set the challenge of recanting the 3 Billy Goats gruff using only polysyllabic words. That's what you would get.
Wow.
It seems so hamstrung by the way it's telling a story that it can't get its words out. But that's not to say I wasn't as vehemently opposed to it as you were. I was bored at times, but I enjoyed it. I as a singular film, I'm okay with it. As we all know, it's not going to be. It's going to have sequel after sequel after sequel, and in that light, I have problems with it. And there are elements within it that we'll get into when we talk about spoilers. But overall, I was not as against it as you were. But I certainly take your points, and I do think they were valid, because I do think it is long and ponderous, needlessly so, and slow.
I think the consensus appears to be there's a section of the critical reception to it, and I'm combining the kind of critical and public kind of reception to it as it ranges from middling to gushing. I've not really been because I try to avoid reviews before I do my own, just to not influence how I think about it. So I haven't read any reviews of it, and I just haven't had the time because I've been working. So I haven't. But it seems to be from middling to gushing, and I wasn't sure. I had no idea how you were going to come out on it. I had no idea what your thoughts were going to be, and you're kind of middling on it, right? Is that fair?
Yeah, it's one of those things where I came away from it going, I'm happy that it exists. If it was just a one and done, like this is a version of Batman, I'd be fine with it. But it just doesn't. There are elements. I think the story they're trying to tell is incongruous with the style they're trying to tell it in.
Okay.
I think.
Okay.
There are various examples of that, and we all know this kind of came from a Ben Affleck project, right? So it was originally going to be that Batman. I didn't hate it, but I was seriously bored at points, and I was trying to check my watch at times subtly, because I just thought, I can't. How much more of this is there? I was like, come on, end, please, because it meanders for a lot of it, and it's very beautiful. It's sort of because I take your points about the lensing, the anamorphic, and because there are times when it is just needless. It's just like so soft on the edges, and,
to the point of abstraction. That's what irritated me. To the point of abstraction, because there's a lot to be said for narrow depth of field, but you've heard my review. Kind of anamorphic distorts that, and it's so excessive. I think.
Yeah. No, I agree with you on that. And it's fine. It's a look they're going for. It's okay. Shall we? Before
I think people want us in Spoiler Town, don't they? Let's go to Spoiler Town. We're not very far in, guys, so we're going to go to Spoiler Town. Would you like to would you like to begin? Or would you like to rise?
Well, let's. I suppose.
Or return. I don't know.
There are plot spoilers, and there are other things to discuss. I suppose the first one to talk about is Batman himself. I'm not keen on the design, and I'm not as keen on R-Pats as I thought I would be. I thought it was a stellar idea to put him in there because, okay, it's going to be really unusual and really interesting, and there are moments when he is, but I think less his fault, though there are choices he makes that I am not really down with, but less his fault, more the script. That the script at times wants him to be the big, burly, brawling Batman, which he isn't. And then at other times he's the sort of detective thinky Batman, but they don't mesh very well. And I think his idea is he's a mumbling, the dialogue. Like at times it's just like, can you emote once, just once, other than I'm a miserable dickhead.
Well, I think that's the thing that I said was like there is no portrayal of Bruce Wayne. And that's a choice they've made, and that's fine. But there's no portrayal of Bruce Wayne. There's a vacuum where Bruce Wayne should be, and it's just kind of like, I don't like opening my letters. And it's like, okay, you're not Michael Jackson, but it's just there's just nothing there. I think it's interesting that
Tito, open the letters.
Open the letters, Bubbles. There is. I tell you what was quite interesting is that
Richard Pryor's here. Get him into
it. Open his letter. Bang! I'd have watched.
Not again.
I'd have watched that. We'll talk about that scene later because it's one of the most irritating scenes in the movie for me that you just talked about. But
okay, all right. Yeah.
They never show him with his shirt off.
They do.
Do they? But it's like from above. Okay, what I mean to say is they never they don't focus on his physique.
Not too much. Well, the shots that are there, he's quite scrawny,
which doesn't really gel with like the insane level of fitness and fighting capability he has, which is a bit of a nitpick, I suppose. But it's like either you want him to be a kind of crackhead Johnny Depp Willy Wonka, or you want him to be Batman. Choose one.
Yeah, I just think it's kind of it's fine that he's neglected himself because it very much that is the thing. Like you say, Bruce Wayne is just a shell. And he has poured all of himself into the Batman, which is a choice. It's not. I'm not saying this is sort of a mistake on their part. I mean, it's clearly deliberate, and it's not one I particularly have a problem with. I think I can get on board with that. It's something we haven't done before. I don't want to see them do the same thing again, so I'm fine with it. But I do find that you need to kind of. I mean, look, it's part of his arc. So his arc is obviously the vengeance, because he keeps calling himself Vengeance, and people call him Vengeance for some weird. Probably because he calls himself Vengeance. He learns that vengeance is not the right motivation.
That's his entire arc, and that's what happens in the movie. He kind of goes like, I realised that vengeance isn't that great. It's like, well, I know nothing about you apart from that.
Well, and he literally has a baptism, doesn't he? So he falls off the thing, cuts himself off.
On that.
He gets up, lights a flare, and leads people to safety.
The stakes are so low. That's what bothers me. So they have this kind of thing. I don't want to jump around too much. I kind of feel like I want to go through.
No, fair enough. I suppose I'm just talking about his character.
No, you are. It's me that's derailing. It's just I'm thinking about the end of the movie. Let me talk about my specific spoilerific frustrations that I couldn't talk about before.
Of course,
Batman is an amazing detective, except for when he isn't. So sometimes he walks into a room and goes, "Oh, it's a type of potato," or whatever for the clue. But when the clue is flying rodent and orphan, even though it's not the correct thing, he doesn't once think it's himself, and it's just like, well, because like the whole thing of like stool pigeon feels like stool pigeon. Some people call pigeons flying rats, and a stool pigeon, it's a type of trader and informant, and it's just, and they both go about this thing of not thinking about they don't think about Bruce Wayne once until the very end, and then they kind of. Then they sort of get there, and he never himself kind of goes like, oh well, no one says between Gordon and Batman, neither of them say bat when the clue is flying rodent, and it's the first place you would go to, surely. And and Alfred, so the Riddler sends a bomb to Wayne Manor, and it's a bomb in a kind of Riddler colour box with a note in a fireproof envelope. And if I got a box with, and it has serial killer handwriting, if I got a box with serial killer handwriting from the serial killer that you, Alfred, have been investigating with Batman, his handwriting on it, and the back of the envelope said, "This is a fireproof envelope," which it does, throw the bomb away then. But he just kind of goes, "Doop-a-doo," and opens the letter. And it's like, well, what the fuck? Why are you an idiot suddenly? Just to serve the plot? Like, there's a lot of people being stupid suddenly to serve the plot, and I found that intensely irritating. For something,
a lot of it, yeah, a lot of that is so obviously there's the big reveal-ish thing is that basically the Riddler, the one person he didn't get was Bruce Wayne, and he believes to have co-opted Batman into his cult because he kind of has an online cult, and he believes that Batman's his partner. But one of his targets was Bruce Wayne, but of course he couldn't kill Bruce Wayne and entice the Batman there, which he didn't realise was, he couldn't have both. And obviously it plays into that thing of Batman thinks he's uncovered his secret identity, but actually he hasn't, and he was just talking about it. So so all of that stuff seems to have to be in service of that, and it is frustrating. I mean, I kind of, it's just sort of. It's convoluted to get there, and what frustrates me, I suppose, is we spent all that time and no one really spells it out. I know they do kind of at the end, and I know I don't want to be spoon-fed, but at the same time, it's like, can you tell me what's going on, please? Because
and it's not that it's hard to work out. It's just the text doesn't take any time to discuss it. So you've just got loads of people standing around in the dark getting things wrong for 3 hours.
Well, and also, like, we do exposition dumps, and we do a voiceover, and I know the voiceover is sort of, I guess that's kind of bringing you back to the comics in a way, but it just doesn't. I know, and they kind of do it like because he writes a diary every night because he's essentially nocturnal now, so he has to kind of keep track of what the days were because they all just blend into one for him. And so that's fine. I mean, I suppose that's fine as a device, but it's kind of like the film does tell us a lot. It shows us hours and hours of rain-drenched, blurry stuff, which is fine, I mean, that's fine. But then it sort of then just wraps it all up. It's like that. I jokingly sent Richard my impression of Andy Serkis's Alfred last night.
Was on point. Because when I listened to it, it just dealt with one of my biggest frustrations with the movie. You did. How do you want to approach this? Do you want to do it again? Do you want me to play it on my phone? Or like,
have you got it on your phone? That'd be really funny.
Okay.
My whole problem, it made me laugh because there's that one shot on Alfred of him just blabbling out a load of exposition in a hospital bed with tubes up his nose, like he's just survived being blown up as well, and it's like. Have you got it?
Oh yeah. Do you want me just to play it? Yeah. Let's just. We'll just explain what's going on. So basically, it's been. The whole film has been building up to there being secrets in the Wayne's past, and this is the one thing I found interesting from the outset of this movie was about something interesting in the Wayne's past. Joker did Thomas Wayne as a bad dude. I theorised Thomas Wayne was a bad dude. It becomes apparent that Thomas Wayne may have been in league with Carmine Falcone and paid him or used him to kill a journalist, and that. But luckily, Alfred is there to explain what happened. And I'm just going to play Duncan's VM. And if this doesn't come quite through on the mic, I'll just dub it over later. Okay. So let me just check. And it's on point, mate. It's absolutely.
This was at like midnight last night when I was like sat in my car going, "What the hell?"
Fuck. Okay. No, it's good. It's good. It's good. Here it comes.
Here's my impression of Andy Serkis's Alfred. Oh, Moss Wayne. Your father, right? He done a thing, but he didn't done it, right? He done it, and now he was a good man. He was a good man. But he hung out with Carmine Falcone, yeah? Carmine Falcone, but he didn't hang out with Carmine Falcone, yeah? Because he didn't. Because he's a good man, your father. He's a good man, and you should look up to him, right? But you shouldn't look up to him, but you should. But he done a thing, but he didn't done a thing. Do you know what I mean? Fucking hell. Have a banana.
Right, so just right now, look.
That's
a great impression of Andy Serkis. Andy Serkis is fucking great. I love him. He's a great performer. Yeah. He's underutilized this. He's bailing it. The entire mystery is that Thomas Wayne might have done a bad thing, and we provided overwhelming evidence that he did do a bad thing, but it's from the Riddler's perspective, so we can't quite trust it. And then Alfred gets blown up because he's too stupid to realise that the bomb that says bomb on it is a bomb, but he lives. And Batman goes to visit, or Bruce Wayne goes to visit him in a hospital bed, and he says, "Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell me about this?"
Well, in between that, he goes to see Falcone.
He goes to see Falcone. And Falcone, of course, tells him that your dad's a bad dude. And then he goes to see Alfred in hospital, and he goes, "Why didn't you tell me all this stuff? I've heard this." And then Alfred says that, and Batman goes, "All right," and it's never mentioned again. And that's not only is it like not that interesting, it's like, oh, Thomas Wayne done a bad thing. I think Thomas Wayne doing a bad thing could be interesting, but it's not a particularly heavyweight bad thing. But it's just that entire kind of mystery that could strike at Batman's core and undo everything we know about Batman in a way we haven't seen. One scene throws it away, and then that's it. And I found that so immensely frustrating. And it took so long to get there. That's what annoyed me. It took so long to give me that, and it's like, well, what the fuck? What do we even do with this?
Because you've sort of got this thematic. So one of the themes of it is fatherhood and rejection by fathers. Because Carmine Falcone it's called Falcone in this, not Falcone, which I think is how it was pronounced.
It seems to, like, between the animated versions and the films, it seems to change. So I don't know, whatever.
But anyway, he's Selena Kyle's dad.
Yeah, which is new, and I'm all right with it.
Yeah, and he obviously loves choking prostitutes.
Yes, this is
lovely bloke. So that's the thing. He rejects his own kin. You've got elements like even Batman. There's an element of Batman and the Riddler because the Riddler feels as though I think it's a realization in Batman that he has inspired this to a
Riddler's
degree.
An orphan. And so and his whole beef is like, and it's been in other Batmans. It's kind of a little bit what Robin touches on in Dark Knight Rises. It's like you were this orphan, we were that orphan, but they do it differently. It's kind of you inspired me, whereas. Well,
it's funny because he's obviously Bruce Wayne inspired him in a hateful way, and Batman inspired him in a hopeful way, and that's the sort of. But obviously, and that's what drives the Riddler insane is he cannot square that circle because he doesn't understand. Just not by knowing that Batman is Bruce Wayne, it drives him insane because he can't work it out, and he's supposed to be the smartest person in the room, right? That's the whole thing with the Riddler is he's trying to prove to everyone how smart he is all the time, and he's a pure narcissist. And Paul Dano? Absolutely excellent. I mean, in the brief bit he actually gets to do some acting, I thought he was absolutely horrifically creepy, and
he is, but I also really didn't like how much kind of a lot of it was shrieking. And I know he's supposed to be manic, but I found it's quite obnoxious kind of shrieky performance. Like when he has the mask off and they get him in the cafe, it's kind of quite creepy, but it's stolen from Seven. It's the John Doe scene from Seven, and there are visual things from Seven, and I'm all for kind of referencing stuff, but this is what if Batman but Seven, but we had to write it in a hurry. Seems to be because like they go to Riddler's nutty room, and it's John Doe's nutty room from Seven with all the diaries and stuff, and all of the kind of stuff on the wall pointing to Bruce Wayne and all the plotting and stuff. It's all from Seven. The stuff where. It's like the one time in Seven when they get the drop on John Doe and he's in soft focus and silhouette and he shoots at Mills and he gets away. They use that constantly, the silhouette of Riddler, and there is Zodiac killer stuff, and it really wants to be Zodiac at the same time. It's a really fantastic movie. It's a long film. Zodiac is a long film, but it uses its time well. Whereas there's no point in Zodiac or Seven when the characters are just stupid for the sake of the plot. And that's one of the things I found really irritating, which is kind of like, if you want to do a David Fincher movie, fine, but you're really going to have to work hard because that dude does not slack. And I just found all of that kind of jumble. And for the first 90 minutes, I was like, I'm on board with this. And then at 90 minutes, it's kind of like, this hasn't. I want a fucking thundering 90 minutes before we get into the last stretch. And at 90 minutes, I was like, this hasn't gone anywhere. This has gone nowhere.
There's moments in it that seem like set up, like especially when you saw it in the trailer and stuff, like when he does the whole flying squirrel suit thing off the top, which was kind of like That looks like a really deliberate thing, but when he puts it on, he sort of just shrugs his shoulders and his cape turns into it for some reason.
Yeah.
And then all right, fine, whatever. But he literally, and it's really well realised, like when he jumps off and he does the whole thing, and then he pulls the parachute out under a bridge, which is not the smartest thing to do. Clouts into the top of it, survives something that should have killed him, really, but like rolls to a stop, gets up and walks off, and it's like, that's it.
Well, it is like,
that doesn't lead into a chase or anything like that.
He doesn't glide with the cape because that's stupid and unrealistic. But here he is wingsuiting into a bus and hitting the top of the bridge and surviving. And it's just like, well, okay, fine.
It's just, I think the problem with it all is it's so po-faced.
Yes.
Which works for the kind of Blade Runner backdrop and stuff. But when you've then got to exposit and then you've got to introduce these kind of wacky characters, something doesn't like Colin Farrell as the Penguin is just sort of like but he does, and he's great.
Yeah,
in isolation.
he disappears into that. Fantastic work by him. Really, really good work.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
also
yeah.
why? It's when they do. I can't remember. I wish I'd written them down, but they keep dropping in like these weird punny dad jokes. It's like, and I don't know if it's studio notes, but it's like insanely po-faced, and then there'll be like a dad joke, and there's a bit where the Penguin's ankles are tied up, and he waddles off, and they might as well have had him going whack 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 whack.
Well, because doesn't he? And as well, he's the one who works out that the difference is, was it El Rata instead of
and it means
La Rata.
URL because it's a web address and stuff. Because he speaks better Spanish than them. And
he says, well, and he goes like, "It's a bat." It's like, because he does say to them like, "It's a bat." Well, how the hell haven't you figured that out?
Exactly. And lampshading it is so much worse because then as well he says, "What are you two, the world's greatest detectives?" And it's like, "Oh, you did that, okay."
It doesn't his way. He goes like, "What do you live in a cave?"
Oh my god, this is what I mean. It's stuff like that. It's so insanely po-faced. Then it does stuff like that, and it's kind of like and they were only stupid for plot convenience, and you've realised that, so you've caused the character to lampshade this horrendously obvious moment. Also, I said they'd do fucking Joker bait, and they did. It's a man at the very end of the movie. Riddler goes to Arkham, and the man in the next cell, who might as well have a nameplate saying John Oker, goes, hee hee hoo ha! Isn't it good for you to have friends? Hoo 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 hee hee hoo 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 hee hee hee.
Well, I got it from because the riddle. I don't think I've heard anyone say this, but the riddle. What was the riddle he said to me? He said, "What is it that's?"
Was it like? Oh, it's something to.
When there's fewer of them.
When there's fewer of them, they're harder to lose, or something. Or the fewer you have, the more it costs to lose them, or the more they're worth. The fewer you have, the more they're worth, and it's friends.
Yeah, it was something like that, but it implied as well, I think, Joker, right? Because if there's Jokers in the pack, the fewer you have. To me, it read like that's what he was saying. Okay. It was like the fewer you have. It's that I just thought was, hang on. I was like, why do you need to do that? Why did you need to, like, because you said like, oh, he won't be turning over the Joker card on the roof of, Gotham PD, and it's like, may as well have, because, and the other thing is the Joker's in Arkham, so what? So he's already done he's already caught the Joker.
2 years into Batman. I don't want another Batman origin story because we know. So, for example, when they came out with the new Spider-Man, we didn't get his origin story, but we don't need it because we've seen it a bunch of times. However, within the plots of those films, they've caused us to understand his motivations and stuff without restating them particularly. This doesn't happen here. Batman's just there, and he's good at doing clues when it suits him, and he kind of stands around being angry, and then when he's Bruce Wayne, he just kind of stares. And it's like, well, there's no substance to this character. This is an empty fucking drum. There's
very little Batmaning as well. Like, I know he does all the detective stuff, which is fine, but visually it's him walking around a crime scene and looking, because he has an eye that can record everything. And then that to me, see, what annoyed me was like, literally, like, whenever a crime's taking place, shadow nearby, and he will just walk out of it, and he just walks everywhere. Like, he walked up to the front door of that nightclub and was like, I am. There's a weird sort of thing about it where it's like he's ethereal. It's got all this, like, he's kind of, the way he looks, everything is supposed to be sort of otherworldly, but then he'll just sort of saunter through a nightclub, or like that bit when he had to run away from the cops in the police station. He looked like a little boy running away.
Like he's knocked on someone's front door and run away, and he's like
done a knock and run.
Stuff like that. And also, it's hyper serious, so flying with a cape is dumb, but the cops will just tolerate a vigilante. Like, that works in 60s comics, or it works in the hyper corrupt Frank Miller world when they don't like him. or it works in the Adam West show. But if this is your hyper serious thing where you're getting pissy about corruption, like I said in my review, but you just like let this nutter come to a crime scene and tamper with evidence, and everyone's fine with it.
They do say it. There are people going like, "You shouldn't touch that. Don't touch that."
Yeah,
but this is what I mean about the kind of difference in Batman, because it's kind of like, but he sort of has that command, right, where he'll turn around and just look at them and then carry on doing what he's doing.
Yeah.
And that's something I could see, animated series Batman doing, or, those kind of, especially that version of Batman who was like totally, when he had his cape wrapped around him, he was just a total, he was a shape.
He's an obelisk.
Exactly.
He's a monument. Batman is a legend and an image and stuff.
Yeah.
And I do get
this, it's just, he isn't. He's just sort of, when he speaks, like the more of him that we're exposed to, the more he just isn't imposing to me. I don't know.
He seems, because do you know what? Like, he's bad at his job.
Yeah.
That's something I found consistently, is that he's bad at his job. And so the final ultimate plan of Riddler is to... Gotham has a seawall, it turns out, in the last half hour. And he's planted bombs on it to flood Gotham. And he's got basically a band of Reddit nutcases that are all going to go... The idea is that a number of people, including the new mayor, are going to be evacuated into Gotham Square Garden, which is pretty self-explanatory.
Mayor-elect Real.
Yes, Mayor-elect Real Ghostbusters, my favourite Spanish football team. And basically... all the people that get evacuated into there are going to be shot by these nutters, and Batman has to stop them. And it's the apocalyptic threat that I kind of said. Here's the thing that gets me about that last scene. It's implied that the whole of Gotham is flooded, so they have to go to Gotham Square Garden, or the whole version of Manhattan in Gotham, the whole centre of Gotham, which is by a seawall, is flooded by these people, which means some can get to Gotham Square Garden because it's high enough where they're going to be then killed by the terrorist people. It ignores the fact that presumably countless people drowned at street level, the ones that couldn't get because they can't all go to this thing. Batman fights the gunman off, which is great. Then he dives off the scaffolding, and they make this really big deal of his baptism. He dives off the scaffolding, and I was watching it going like...
Also, he can chop a electric cable that's flailing about, I guess because it might hit the water and kill everyone. Not that it would, but... Right,
yeah, exactly. I was a bit... So because it would cause a short, and it's not too much water, not enough electric. That's not how that works.
Yeah.
They do this big thing where he jumps off the scaffolding like it's a baptism, and I was like, "What? Why? What's he going to do?" And then he walks a bit and moves a bit of scaffolding for some people that didn't really need it.
Yeah, he just shoulders it out the way. Again, it's that thing of like, he is not that man. He's the scrawny young bloke. It's
little
like, why is it? And he just like barges it out the way with his shoulder. Admittedly, hopped up on what I assume is adrenaline. That was weird.
Yeah, he injects himself with adrenaline, but it looks like it might be Bane venom or something.
I know, through like a sort of port in his leg, or something.
Which means he's got that wired into his veins all the time.
Yeah,
there's this big heroic thing of where he moves the bit of scaffolding, which anybody could have done, and they weren't even trapped.
No, and all he does is reach out and literally just pulls them out. And again, it looks like a kid playing Batman at that point, because it's just like, come to safety this way, and it's just like they probably know the way out and they could just walk.
Yeah,
but he's leading them with the
everyone was too dumb to move the scaffolding. The world's greatest detective could move the scaffolding.
The point is, I mean, I don't want to get sort of... You're right, and thematically, the point of the baptism is this real... I don't know why it happens at that point, because it's a weird point to have it happen, but the realization that he should lead people rather than just engage in vengeful acts.
And that's the button. He narrates again, it's kind of like, actually, vengeance is bad. And it's like, well, that's the only way. You haven't developed. You were an empty character to begin with, and you haven't developed at all. I'm going, vengeance is bad, I guess. See you in year 3. And it's like, well, all right, yeah, okay. I just felt like it consistently seemed that Batman was really ineffective. He could, like I said, he could walk into a crime scene and he could intuit what the clue was and go like, everyone would get it wrong. He'd go like, no, it means banana. But like when it's really obvious, when the clue is like, imagine a man dressed as a bat, and he goes, oh, I think it means an ocelot, just for the sake of the fucking plot. And then at the end, like all these people have drowned, and he shoulders a bit of scaffolding, and then the news kind of go, and the crazy, insane vigilante hero that's put a bunch of people into a coma is helping the cops move some people out of a flooded stadium. and it just so much of it didn't add up. All this
just had this
stuff
sort of
really
horrible 9/11 imagery as well of that woman on the stretcher, like an EMT worker or something, sort of reaching out for him and that kind of stuff.
Right,
and I'm like,
she's got like the neck brace on, and because that's the image of him covered in mud that's been kind of doing the rounds.
Yeah, that to me, I kept waiting for that, and I was like going, I'm sure this should be finishing soon, and I was like, oh no, because I don't know what that's from, but fucking hell, that's got to happen as well. When the hell is this going to end? And it just turned out, at some point he dug someone out of mud or whatever. And I was like, oh, all right, like, fine. Yeah,
so I just think, I think that there's loads of great performances. I think Jeffrey Wright's an awesome choice for Gordon. Like Zoe Kravitz was doing good stuff. I think Pattinson was good, but perhaps the character the way it's written isn't right. You got John Turturro in there. That's so great. The other thing I didn't say in my review, which I meant to, is that I'm a fan of Michael Giacchino as a composer, and I really like the Batman theme. I think it's utilised really well, like because it's a bell tolling, right, and it's kind of like something dark is coming, and it's the Batman. It's dang, 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 dang.
Yeah.
Cool. That's good. And like there's, I thought the car chase was tedious, but like he's upside down because he's like a bat, right? So that he's upside down. Yeah. There's a visual motif of eyes
sort of
that they
gunsling, well, eyes and feet, because whenever he's walking towards someone, you get the shot of his feet, and he's walking like a kind of gunslinger.
Yeah, and you get the kind of clanking of spurs.
Yeah.
The thing of eyes, consistently the motif of eyes, which is like there are shots of eyes, shots out of eyes, fetishized kind of things of contact lens going eyes, people watching displays that are made of circles, the card that has eyes for an hour, then they get bored and there are no more motifs. It's just kind of... You know what I mean? It's like there's a strong visual thing, and then it just kind of goes away.
I think what's frustrating is there are things to be done with that, but this Batman isn't right for that. I just don't think it feels performative when you're looking at him in a room full of cops or whatever, and he literally just sort of walks around like he's in a Halloween party, and he doesn't say anything. It's just like mumbles and does, and I just can't get in his head. Really, I don't care.
It's the mumblecore Batman movie. I think that's it is. It's the mumblecore Batman movie. It's irritatingly minimalist for a 3-hour film.
Yeah,
and you can't get in his head. What are his motivations? What's he like as a human being? Good at punching, not good at wingsuiting.
Being a dick to Alfred, apart from holding his hand. Like when he nearly thought he was dead, like that's what made him stop being a dick to him briefly.
I love that they had to invent like a comedy maid to be there when he went home.
Yeah. Aunt Harriet, isn't it?
Oh, is it? Oh, okay.
I don't think that is her name.
Well, maybe, but that's the classic. Because he doesn't, like, Wayne Manor is like a mansion at the top of a skyscraper. Is it?
Yeah, it's part of like Wayne Enterprises or something. It's weird. Right, it's like sort of penthouse.
Kind of penthouse with the kind of old wood. Fine. I know.
Because there's something they say about the orphan program, and I wasn't sure if they'd sort of donated Wayne Manor to that or something. I think
right. Okay. I think changes to the character are very welcome, but I'm not bothered. Like Carmine Falcone being Catwoman's dad and stuff. No problem with me at all. There's so much Frank Miller stuff. I think Catwoman with the pixie cut. She lives with the other kind of blonde girl. House full of cats. That's all from year one. Him dressed in a kind of homeless guy disguise, that's all from year one. I think the Frank Miller motif of television screens, year one. I think if you do Batman things, I think like every Batman adaptation since the 89 one has had some flavour of Frank Miller. So large the shadow looms, and kind of Neil Adams and stuff like that. It's there.
I think yeah, it is. Like I think where a lot of I think just for me, what I felt were a lot of the problems were like where the story they wanted to tell, the tone they wanted to set, and the people they cast to do it didn't quite mesh. I think it's things like you want to have Batman basically on a FaceTime with the Riddler, and to me, there's something weird about a sort of picture-in-picture shot of Batman on a video call. Do you know what I mean? I just think that stuff like that. I don't think you should show that. There were things that I just thought I wouldn't show Batman doing it. And then, like you say, doing dumb shit like basically going what's the guy's name? It's not Bill. Is it Bill Skarsgård? So he's. Oh,
it's Skarsgård. Yeah, it's.
Is it Skarsgård? Yeah,
I can't remember which Skarsgård is because there's Alexander Skarsgård, there's Bill Skarsgård, there's. Skarsgård.
Yeah, but he's not the one who's that family. He's
the one that Whichever Skarsgård we have.
The one from Green Lantern, because, as can't possibly cast new people.
Brainulon or whatever.
Or whatever. Yeah. Brainulon dick face, if I recall correctly, which I don't. Yeah, he's the DA, isn't he? And like that thing with the thing's counting down, it's going to explode, and Batman's still in his face going, "Who's the rat? Who's the rat?" It's like, move.
Yeah,
move.
But it turns out getting blown up doesn't matter, so it's fine.
Yeah, well, exactly. That's the other thing. Is it's sort of like people just survive the most ludicrous things,
but it's serious and gritty, and it's like, well, it is until it isn't, and then something like that happens.
Yeah, you would think as well, like
pissing out of his nose or be dead.
Yeah, I sort of initially I was a bit like, what? He doesn't know what a carpet tool is, and then I realised like, yeah, but he wouldn't, would he? And there's a sort of thing where it's kind of like, yeah, because you're a billionaire.
Yeah, he's never had to move carpet, lay carpet.
Yeah. So I guess, but then you would think like, and he needed that to remove the carpet, did he?
Well, and again, world's greatest detective. He's Batman. He's supposed to know all this shit. It's like Sherlock Holmes. It's like a public schoolboy, but he knows everything. You know, that's part of his appeal.
I mean, I do get the fact that this is still a proto Batman. I don't think this is supposed to be like, but I am
sure
utterly sick of that. These aren't the characters you know and love yet, and it's like, please stop.
It's the story of how they become the hero you know. We know how they become the hero we know because they're the hero we know. Can we just have stories about the hero we know, please?
Yeah, I know.
And it's his second year. I just felt all the setup to him was just kind of like he's got a little book that says Batman Project. It's like, fine. Right. But it's just like, I get, don't show us origin again. Don't show us we don't need to see his parents get killed. We don't need any of that. But we do need a bit of flavour, a little hint of what's gone on and his motivations. I have no idea what his motivations are. His vengeance. But now they're not, because he found out that's bad because he moved some scaffolding.
Well, I think it's I suppose it's getting back in touch with his father through Alfred. But here's my problem with that, right? His thing with the whole like silly contrived stuff about his dad, shattering the illusions of him being a good man, and then having them restored by Alfred. One of the reasons he was pissed off at Alfred was because he thought he lied to him his whole life. But Alfred kind of did, because then he told him all the stuff about his dad that he'd never told him about before. Two characters who haven't shared a degree of warmth in this entire film. Yeah, suddenly
there's
no holding
relationship
hands
there at all.
Yeah, and he's like, I could teach you to fight, but I was not a dad to you, geezers and chips. And it's just like, and you just sort of go, right? It was this, and then it's kind of, and then the bat signal interrupts it, and it seems to me they want to do that thing of, which is like, is a Batman thing, where it's like he looks up and there's the signal, and it's kind of, but that feels really unearned as well, because there's this stuff at the start that goes, we have a signal now. And I did like, I suppose, all the voiceover stuff when he says like, they think I'm in the shadows, that I am the shadows kind of thing, and that's. But then he's revealed just sort of sauntering out of a subway. What I mean?
Exactly. And he goes out on his motorbike like he does Deliveroo. He's just fucking tearing around Gotham. I think it's felt small, and that's because there's Falcone's nightclub. He goes back about 5 times. There's
that running gag, isn't there, about, do you know who I am? And that actually taking the mask off lets him in. Yeah. But then the third time he just smashes his way through the door, doesn't he? And it's just like, what did you learn?
Yeah. And like, there's the handful of crime scenes. There's a Gotham PD. There's that one rooftop. And if it's not out of focus, so you don't know where it is, it's one of the handful of locations, and it's back and back and back and back and back and back and back, and everything's brown and muddy. I just found it for a film with that much money that seemed to should have a lot of scope. I'm not a fan of the Batman '89, but it does this insane gothic film noir kind of metropolis German expressionist city, right? It's quite set bound, was always one of my complaints, but there's this sense of it's there. And the Nolan ones, all right, once they get off the narrows and go to the Dark Knight, my complaint about the Nolan films is they're a bit too clean. But there's a sense of space and time, and you're constantly reminded of where you are and what's going on. Whereas this was kind of smeary and muddy and out of focus, and that kind of made me feel a bit queasy watching it. And
I didn't have as much of a problem with the sort of setups and the design of it, except for Batman. I think that's part of my problem with it. Is just, this Batman doesn't feel like a part of that world, really. For me, I was kind of. I mean, I get it doesn't. I think the problem is when you then want to have moments, like he's basically shown to sort of run around a lot, drive a motorbike. Which, by the way, like, it's not a great plan to have the Batcave. I know the Batcave's obviously in an old subway station. There was obviously a private one for the Waynes or whatever under Wayne Towers. But he sort of seems to get to it on his bike by riding down staircases and stuff. And it's like, how did you get the Batmobile out of there? And then also, wouldn't people see you going in?
Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, because it wants to do lo-fi Batman, but then that presents problems.
Well, that's my point.
Don't do Batmite in Batman in space necessarily, but if you're going to be that lo-fi, then you really have. It's a lot of circles to square there, my friends.
There's that moment where obviously the Riddler he gets Batman to bring. So I'm going to say two things. Don't let me get off this one. But there's the bit. So the Riddler thinks he's his partner, and he's like, "But I told you, I gave you all the clues. I said bring him into the light, and you did." And it's like, you didn't expressly say to do that. You sold a lot, it's just like what, and you believe that he would anyway. Whatever. And obviously there's that thing. Carmine Falcone was shot, and Thomas Wayne patched him up, and Bruce Wayne watched from a staircase, and then obviously he gets shot, and Bruce Wayne watches him die. For whatever reason, but then, so my point is, it's like then there's that moment where Batman needs to get up to the Riddler's apartment, so you get that shot of basically the grappling hook coming through the window, hitting a radiator, and then he just smashes through the window, and it's kind of like that's fine, because grappling hooks or whatever. But
and then he just talks to the cop that's in there anyway.
Yeah,
he could just knocked on the door. Which the thing we see from this Batman, you could actually imagine him just, "Oh, I'm here for the crime scene. Should I take my shoes off?"
He literally does do that though, like at the nightclub and stuff. He knocks on the front door. It's like Batman wouldn't do it. But then there's all that. Then you want to have that. They want to have that shot. You always have to have that obligatory shot of Batman falling with his cape open and stuff, which he kind of does at the end when he sets off all those explosions on the roof. To save people, and then sort of smashes through it all. And it's kind of like there's a lot of him going through fire and coming out of fire, which I don't think really means anything.
Well, again, you could view it as a motif, and when it's just done over and over again, it's like, you think this looks cool.
I mean, I don't know. I didn't hate it. I'm fine with it. At the end, the ending when he drove off with Selena Kyle, that went on far too long. It's like, how long does it take to get out of that graveyard?
Return of the King energy, mate. That is fucking end. Well, look, I think it's time to end. I think we've shot the shit out of this one. It's a good 40 minutes.
There's blatantly. Oh, one very quick thing.
Yes, of course.
They set up Robin, which
did they?
The mayor's son, because at the start he's in that red ninja costume. We think he's Bruce.
Fuck.
We think he's Bruce, and then because it looks like Alfred. That I thought, obviously that's the misdirect. Is you think it's Bruce fighting Alfred.
There you go. There's my ignorance. I'm wrong about this film. It's actually brilliant. I didn't notice Robin. I didn't even notice that at all. Okay, fair enough.
Well, because they lock eyes, he saves him as well. From
constant.
Yeah.
Kind of, that makes it adds up. I just thought it was because to me, I'll give Zack Snyder that credit. He put Robin in his film. He was dead, but he put him in the film. Whereas like the serious takes don't have Robin because Robin's silly. That's silly. The man in the Halloween costume isn't silly, but Robin's silly. Well, please leave your angry, irate invective below, or not. It's just a movie, which you're kind of more middling on. I clearly have really rammed home how much I didn't like it. But there you go. That's 3 hours of my life I ain't getting fucking back. So
I don't think I'll watch it again. I think it's the kind of film I'll put on and go, oh no, and turn it off because there's just very little going on. But I didn't hate it. I wasn't annoyed that I went and saw it, and. If people enjoy it, then I say more power to them. It definitely has not supplanted Batman Begins for me, though.
Yeah, absolutely. If you enjoy it, you enjoy it. Good for you. I appear to be in quite a minority, which is not something I seek or I'm proud of. And I wanted to like it, so that's why I'm annoyed. So there you go, The Batman. So that's it. We're happy to be back doing more content. There's been a lot going on recently the last week or so. Patreon had a Batman speculation video, so you can go see that exclusively there. I'm doing Star Trek Picard reviews every week. It seems to have got a bit better. Duncan's thrilled about Star Trek Picard. So yeah, stuff going on behind the scenes. So we're going to sign off, I reckon. Please see below the video for where you can find all of our social medias. And we love you and we goodbye. Isn't that right, Duncan?
That it is, yes.
The Batman, goodbye.